All right, get ready for this deep dive. We're going into some pretty mysterious territory. And when I say territory, I mean like literally the ocean floor. We're talking about this strange underwater object, maybe even the size of Guam. And it looks like it's carving a path across the ocean floor.
Yeah, it's definitely intriguing, the scale of it, you know? I mean, just based on what Dr. William B. Mount describes in this recording you gave me, it's an object that massive moving across the ocean floor. It just brings up so many questions like, how did it get there? What is it doing?
And that's not even the craziest part. Dr. Mount says this thing's been around for millennia. Like it's been leaving this long gouge in the ocean floor for who knows how long. And get this, he actually gives a location near Queen Charlotte Island off the coast of Alaska. Have you ever heard of that place?
Oh, yeah, Queen Charlotte Islands. They're also called Haida Gwaii. They're part of this volcanic archipelago. And the waters around there, especially the Queen Charlotte Sound or Trough, they're known for being seismically active.
So we've got volcanic activity and a mysterious underwater object. Sounds like the start of a sci-fi movie, right?
Yeah, it does have that kind of feel to it. But what I find really interesting is how Dr. Mount connects this underwater object to like government cover-ups and maybe even extraterrestrial activity. For example, he claims that Google Maps is deliberately hiding it, like they're trying to keep it a secret.
Yeah, that's where it starts to sound like a conspiracy theory. I mean, think about it. How could they actually erase something that huge from satellite images? And why even bother? What's the point?
Right, those are good questions to ask. And it raises a bigger issue about controlling information in the digital age. We depend so much on things like Google Maps to understand and explore the world. But what if that information is being manipulated or it's incomplete? How does that affect our perception of reality?
It's kind of like those old maps that said, here be dragons in the unexplored areas. We think we have all this information about the world, but maybe there are still these huge unknown areas, even online, that are shrouded in mystery.
Exactly. And Dr. Mount doesn't stop there. He claims that there were pictures of massive underground bases on Diego Garcia, which is an island in the Indian Ocean, but he says those images were intentionally put there and then removed, like they wanted to mislead people.
Wait, are you serious? Fake evidence? Secret bases? It sounds like we're in a spy movie now.
It definitely has that feel, but then he points to this other structure north of Diego Garcia that looks like an underground base, and he says this one is real, like proof of inactivity. It's like he thinks whoever is doing the cover-up messed up and forgot to erase this one.
So he's saying there's this whole game of smoke and mirrors going on, with some real secrets mixed in with fake information.
That seems to be what he's suggesting, and it's something that's often associated with intelligence agencies, controlling the flow of information. They might release some fake info or leaks on purpose to confuse everyone and make it hard to tell what's real and what's not.
It's like that magic trick where they distract you with one hand while they're doing something sneaky with the other.
Exactly. It's a very effective tactic, especially with complicated and emotional topics.
So how does this giant underwater object fit into all of this? Is Dr. Mount saying it's connected to these secret bases or something?
He doesn't come right out and say that, but he starts to create this narrative that connects it to other things that are happening, like more UFO sightings around the Queen Charlotte Trough.
Wait a minute, UFOs, now we're really going deep into conspiracy theories.
It's definitely a bold statement, but remember, Dr. Mount is just sharing what he's observed and what he thinks based on his research and experiences. He's not afraid to connect seemingly unrelated events, even if others might think it's a stretch.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's know it. What other connections is he making?
Well, he claims that something that could be an underwater UFO was found between Finland and Sweden, and he says both Russia and the United States are trying to get control of it.
A sunken UFO. That sounds straight out of a movie. Seriously, though, why would two major superpowers care about a UFO that's underwater?
Good question. Dr. Mount thinks it might be about trying to get their hands on advanced technology, or maybe even trying to figure out how alien crafts work. It shows how fascinated we are with the possibility of extraterrestrial life and what we could learn from their technology.
And of course, he doesn't stop there, right? He connects this to other stuff too, like Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica and the supposed no-fly zones around 9 bases down there.
Ah, yes. Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica back in the 40s and 50s. It's often mentioned when people talk about secret government operations, possible contact with aliens, and the idea of a hidden world under the ice.
If I remember correctly, Byrd encountered some pretty strange things down there, didn't he?
There are lots of stories and interpretations of what Byrd experienced, some more believable than others, but what's fascinating is how those stories have become intertwined with conspiracy theories and ideas about a hidden history that's being kept from the public.
And Dr. Mount says there are no-fly zones over certain parts of Antarctica.
That's what he claims. He says pilots who are flying in supplies are given mats with these zones marked and told that they'll be shot down if they go near them. It definitely adds to the mystery.
Okay, so far we've got a mysterious underwater object, possible government cover-ups, a sunken UFO, and secret bases in Antarctica. Anything else?
You bet. He even claims that the US and Russia landed on Mars together back in 1962 using alien technology.
Hold on, a joint U.S.-Russian mission to Mars in 1962? That's impossible. Back then, we were barely getting satellites into orbit, let alone sending people to Mars, and with alien technology. That's hard to believe, even for the most imaginative people.
I know, it's a huge claim, and it would need some serious evidence to back it up. It speaks to this idea that some people have that there's a whole secret history of space exploration that we don't know about, something beyond what's officially been acknowledged.
It's like he's saying there's this whole secret space program going on behind the scenes, maybe even working with extraterrestrials.
That seems to be what he's implying. It taps into our deep desire to believe that there's more to our world than meets the eye, that there are hidden truths and incredible events happening just outside our awareness.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. It's clear that Dr. Mount has some pretty wild ideas. But before we get too lost in all this, let's take a break and come back for the next part of our deep dive.
It is a lot to think about, but as we look more closely at Dr. Mount's claims, it's important to remember to think critically. It's easy to get swept up in these exciting stories, but we have to really look at the evidence and think about other possible explanations.
Yeah, you're right. It's easy to get caught up in all these amazing claims, but we have to approach them with a healthy dose of skepticism. So let's try to think critically and look more closely at some of the evidence Dr. Mount is presenting.
Great point. One thing that keeps coming up in what Dr. Mount is saying is this idea that someone is trying to control the information we can access, especially when it comes to things like Google Maps. He seems to think certain features or areas are being hidden or changed on purpose to keep the truth from us.
He specifically said that the huge underwater object near Queen Charlie Island is blurred out on Google Maps. But wouldn't something that big be really hard to hide completely? Wouldn't someone have noticed it before, even without Google Maps?
Yeah, you'd think so. And that's where we need to think about other explanations. Satellite images are advanced, but they're not perfect. There could be technical issues, glitches in the data, or even natural things that make it look like something is being hidden.
So it's not necessarily a secret government plot to cover up alien bases or underwater objects?
Not necessarily. While it might be tempting to jump to those conclusions, we need to remember that there are often simpler explanations. It's like Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually the right one.
Oh yeah, I remember that from philosophy class. But Dr. Mount also talks about how certain images, like the one supposedly showing underground bases on Diego Garcia, were probably put there and then taken down on purpose. He thinks it's a way to make people who are looking into these things look crazy, or to create a distraction to hide something else.
That's what they call disinformation, and it's a real thing. Intelligence agencies and even some private groups have used disinformation campaigns to manipulate what the public thinks, cause trouble, or reach their own goals.
So it is possible that some of the information Dr. Mount is using is intentionally misleading.
It's definitely possible, and that's what makes this whole thing so tricky. We're dealing with a complicated mix of information, some of which might be true, some might be twisted on purpose, and some might just be misunderstandings or people interpreting things the wrong way.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where some pieces are missing, some are from a different puzzle, and some might even be fake.
Exactly, and that's why critical thinking is so important. We need to carefully examine every piece of information, think about where it came from, and decide how believable it is before trying to fit it into the bigger picture.
Okay, so back to Diego Garcia. Dr. Mount says that some pictures showing underground bases were put there and then removed, but then he points to another structure north of the island that he says is a real base. It's like he thinks whoever is trying to cover things up made a mistake and forgot to erase this one.
It's an interesting detail, and it makes the story even more complicated. But it also shows how important it is to not just accept everything we see or hear. Even if we think there might be a cover-up, it doesn't mean that everything Dr. Mount is using as evidence is accurate or trustworthy.
So we have to be careful about picking and choosing evidence that fits a certain story, even if that story is exciting or interesting.
Exactly. We need to find a balance between being open-minded and being skeptical. We should be open to exploring new ideas and challenging what we think we know, but we also need to be careful about how we evaluate evidence and avoid making conclusions based on incomplete or potentially biased information.
Dr. Mount also mentions the CIA UFO files, which were declassified a while ago. He seems to think there's a reason why they were released to the public, like maybe they're trying to get us used to the idea of extraterrestrial life slowly.
The release of government documents that were previously secret is always a big deal. It often makes people wonder what information was hidden and why they decided to make it public at that specific time.
He seems to think it's part of a bigger plan, like they're gradually revealing something huge. But if that's the case, why do it so slowly? Why not just tell us what they know?
That's something a lot of people have wondered about. Some think it's about controlling how the public reacts, like preventing widespread panic or social unrest. Others think it's about controlling the narrative, releasing information in a way that benefits them.
It's interesting to think about what would happen if we found out for sure that we're not alone in the universe. How would people react?
It's tough to say. It would definitely be a huge event that would change our understanding of our place in the cosmos. It could even challenge religious beliefs, scientific ideas, and our sense of who we are as a species.
And then he ties this to the story about a possible underwater UFO being found between Finland and Sweden, which both countries are supposedly trying to keep secret. It's like he's describing a global race to control alien technology.
This idea of a global competition for advanced technology, especially if it's alien technology, is a common theme in science fiction and conspiracy theories. It plays on our worries about national security, who has the best technology, and what could happen if dangerous technology falls into the wrong hands.
And he brings up Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica again, with those supposed no-fly zones adding to the mystery. It's almost like he's building a case for a hidden history of humans interacting with aliens and advanced technology that's only now starting to come out.
It's a compelling story, and it resonates with a lot of people who think there's more to our world than we're being told. But we have to remember that a good story isn't always true.
So how do we tell what's true and what's not? How do we figure out this mess of information and understand it?
That's the challenge, isn't it? We need to get better at critical thinking, learn how to evaluate where information comes from, and be willing to question what we think we know, even our own beliefs. We should be open to the possibility that there are things we don't understand, mysteries that haven't been solved, but we also need to be grounded in a healthy amount of skepticism and stick to explanations that are based on evidence.
It's like walking a tightrope between being open-minded and being critical, being willing to consider extraordinary claims without just believing everything we hear.
You got it. And that's a skill that's becoming more and more important these days because we're constantly bombarded with information from everywhere, and a lot of it isn't verified or is even meant to mislead us.
It's easy to get lost in all the noise and forget what's real, so what can we do to stay grounded and make smart decisions?
One thing we can do is get our information from different places. Don't just rely on one website, book, or expert. Look for different points of view, even ones that challenge what we already think.
That makes sense. The more different viewpoints we see, the more balanced and nuanced our understanding of the world becomes.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Question where the information is coming from, question why the people presenting it are doing so, and question your own assumptions and biases.
It's about being an active participant in learning, not just passively taking in whatever we're told.
You got it. And remember, critical thinking isn't about being cynical or dismissive. It's about thoughtfully engaging with information, looking for evidence, evaluating arguments, and forming our own conclusions based on the best information available.
So how do we apply this critical thinking to what Dr. Mount is saying? We've talked about Google Maps, disinformation campaigns, and how people might misinterpret things. But what about the really out there claims, like the US and Russia going to Mars together in 1962?
That's where our knowledge of history and how science works come in. A mission that big in 1962 wouldn't have been possible with the technology they had back then, especially with the Cold War going on.
Right, back then we were barely able to get a satellite into orbit, let alone send people to Mars. And the idea of the US and Russia working together on something like that during that time seems pretty unlikely.
You got it. And that's a warning sign that should make us question if that particular claim is true. It doesn't mean that everything Dr. Mount says is wrong, but it does show how important it is to carefully examine each piece of information.
So what about the UN broadcast that Dr. Mount found so disturbing? He said something about Lucifer running the UN after a nuclear war. That seems pretty extreme, even for a conspiracy theory.
It's definitely a provocative claim, and it probably comes from a specific worldview or interpretation of events. We have to remember that our personal beliefs and experiences can influence how we see and understand information, especially when it's about something complicated and emotional.
So is it possible that Dr. Mount is projecting his own fears or beliefs onto this UN broadcast?
It's possible, and that's why it's so important to be aware of our own biases and how they might be affecting how we see the world around us.
Okay, so we need to be careful about accepting any information as fact, even if it comes from someone who seems credible. We need to think about the context, the motives, and the possibility of misinterpretations or intentional distortions.
Exactly. And we have to remember that critical thinking is a process that never ends. It's not something we do once and then we're done. It's a way of engaging with the world, a set of skills and habits that we need to keep developing and practicing.
It's like a muscle that we need to work out regularly to keep it strong.
Exactly. And the more we use that muscle, the better we'll be at dealing with all the complicated and constantly changing information and misinformation we come across every day.
It seems like we've covered a lot, from Google Maps to disinformation campaigns to critical thinking. But there's still more to discuss, right? What else does Dr. Mount talk about?
Oh, there's more. He gets into some really interesting and kind of unsettling claims about a Russian meteorite warning and an online game called The Blackout that he thinks is more than just a game. But let's save those for the last part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about Dr. Mount's ideas about underwater objects, possible government cover-ups, and even a secret space program. But he doesn't stop there, does he? He goes on to talk about this Russian meteorite warning and an online game called The Blackout. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. So Dr. Mount describes this event where Russia put on a warning about a meteorite, but then instead of a meteorite hitting, there's this huge fireball that was caught on video. And Dr. Mount is convinced it wasn't a natural event. He thinks it was some kind of aircraft exploding.
So he's saying the Russian government knew about this beforehand and lied about it being a meteorite. But why would they do that?
That's the big question, right? Dr. Mount thinks it could be connected to those secret space programs we were talking about. Maybe it was a secret mission that went wrong, or maybe they were testing some advanced technology that malfunctioned.
It sounds like he's suggesting that governments aren't just hiding evidence of aliens, but are also running their own secret space operations.
Exactly, and it plays into this deep distrust that some people have of authority figures. They believe that the people in power are keeping important information from the public.
It's interesting how these themes of secrecy and hidden knowledge keep popping up in what Dr. Mount is saying.
Yeah, it's a common thread in a lot of conspiracy theories, the idea that there's a hidden reality, a truth that's being kept from us by those in control.
And then he connects this to an online game called The Blackout, which he thinks is more than just a game.
Right. He says this game is super realistic, almost like it's based on real events or classified information. He thinks it's depicting a space war that's happening in secret where no one can see it.
So he's saying this game is like a way of revealing the truth to those who are paying attention.
That's one way to look at it, the idea that the truth is often hidden in plain sight, like in pop culture or things that seem like harmless entertainment.
That's an interesting idea, but it also makes it really hard to figure out what's real and what's not. How do we know what to believe and what to just dismiss as fantasy?
That's where critical thinking is so important. We need to be able to analyze information, evaluate the sources, and look at things from different perspectives.
I get that. That even if we're super critical, it's hard to ignore how much Dr. Mount is saying and how consistent it is. He's painting a pretty detailed picture of hidden activities, government cover-ups, and possible alien involvement.
He definitely is, and it makes sense why some people find his story so convincing. It provides a sense of meaning, a way to understand things that might otherwise seem random or confusing.
It's like he's giving us a map to a hidden world, one that exists right alongside our own but is hidden from view.
You got it. And that can be a very appealing idea, especially for people who are disillusioned with official explanations or who are looking for answers to questions that science or traditional explanations haven't been able to answer.
But we have to remember that a map, no matter how detailed it is, isn't the same as the real thing. We need to be careful not to mistake our interpretations for reality.
Absolutely. And that's why it's good to step back and look at the bigger picture. If what Dr. Mount is saying is true, it would mean that everything we thought we knew about history, science, and even our place in the universe is wrong.
It would mean there's a whole other reality going on right beside our own, one that's been deliberately kept secret from us.
And that's a pretty profound idea to consider. It challenges our most basic assumptions about the world and our place in it.
So what do we do now? How do we reconcile these extraordinary claims with our everyday lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? We need to keep exploring, keep researching, keep asking questions, and stay open-minded. But we also have to stay grounded in critical thinking and a healthy amount of skepticism.
It sounds like there's no easy answer, no definite conclusion we can reach.
That's how it is when you're exploring the unknown. There's always more to learn, more questions to ask, and more mysteries to uncover.
What do you think about Dr. Mount's claims? Do you believe any of it?
I approach it with a combination of curiosity and caution. I find his observations interesting, his research is thought-provoking, and the stories he tells are definitely engaging. But I also know that we need to think critically, explore other possible explanations, and recognize that we don't know everything.
It's like we're standing on the shore of a vast, unexplored ocean. We can see hints of something incredible beneath the surface, but we can't fully understand how deep it goes or what it really is.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole exploration so exciting. We're venturing into the unknown, where the line between reality and imagination gets blurry, and where the answers are often hard to find.
Even if we don't take everything Dr. Mount says as fact, this deep dive has definitely been a mind-opening experience. It's made me see the world in a new way, question what I thought I knew, and consider possibilities I never thought of before.
And maybe that's the most important thing we can take away from this whole discussion. Being willing to engage with new ideas, challenge what we believe, and embrace the mystery and wonder that still exists in our world.
It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, more to discover, and that the journey of exploration is just as important as the destination.
I agree. And who knows what other mysteries are out there waiting to be found.
Well, on that mysterious note, we'll leave you to think about the possibilities. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring.